garden update. Obviously some have died off, but the others are doing well. That's the little side garden I made. Now I'll go around the front. So this is the front garden, and I've actually added this part here with, got a shadow there, with a couple of new hedging plants as it turns out. So these are native ones. Westringia glabra there, and the winter rouge there. So obviously you can see that one's a whiter flower, and the Westringia's kind of more of a lavender colour. So one there, one there, one there, one there. So they're interspersed. The idea is that they grow enough to then be able to take cuttings and continue it around this way. So we're covering all this part because the buxus are just not doing it. They're too slow growing. And the driveway section here, I would have to guess these are the bells of Ireland, because they're a nice green flower and a bit unique looking, so they've come up quite nicely there. And then I don't remember the name of this one, but that one's doing quite well also. On the other side, there's a little bells of Ireland there, but less growth there, but that's alright. On this side we've got the viburnums, which are looking a little bit affected by the heat, but they should be alright, they should come back. In fact, some of them have actually got some nice sort of fresh growth on them. There's a bit more fresh growth on there, and the top one there's got fresh growth, and fresh growth over there. So it's doing all right. A lot of the garden beds are starting to look a bit dry and done. Not too surprising, as we're just about the end of the first month of autumn. Probably need to give that another water. I can't even remember what it is, because that's the sort of gardener I am, I forget. Obviously bought as a little, well not obviously, but I bought that as a little seedling. It's one that should actually grow up to a decent little height, because I'm trying to add a bit more colour and such here. You can just see Angelonia, I think it is. And they're discounted because they're looking a bit worse for wear. We'll see how that goes. The hollyhock, despite being cut back quite a bit, it's still got a bit of growth on it. Added a little blue trumpets there. So these are basically ones that I get at our local hardware store, which I get vouchers for by doing surveys. So that's good, kind of free plants. All the dahlias. Now over here, this is a bit of an experimental bit. That's cyclamen, or cyclamen, I'm not sure the pronunciation, but there you go. That one's kind of just hanging on there. I've actually got a couple more around the place, but this mound here, as you can kind of see here, it's very clay, it's dense soil. This was dug up when I sort of redid, sorry about the spin around. The surface here actually tried to level it a bit because it was quite up and down, still kind of is. So a lot of that soil ended up here, and it's very clay dense, so it's very firm. So, well, as you can see, a bunch of the sunflowers, when they're basically finished, put those here, some dahlia cuttings. So the idea is to basically compost on top. At the very least, maybe I'll get a nice layer, nice compost layer on the top to plant into. But I'm hoping that by continually adding compost, it'll slowly sort of work through the thicker clay soil, and hopefully sort of break that up a bit when the bugs and worms go through. It's a particular Nepeta variety, I think. I can't remember the particular one. Quite pungent. Sorry, there's some roadworks making a bit of noise there. More of the hollyhocks. A nice sort of purple, that one. As you can see, quite a bit of wildlife on there as well. There we go. And I've got the lupin. And as you can see here, the lupin actually makes quite these nice little fuzzy seed pods. There's quite a few of those. So if they self-seed, totally fine. As you can see, there's quite a lot of them. So that's good. The snapdragon in there, which I believe are dwarf snapdragon, that kind of backed off a bit. There's still a little bit of colour there, so that's okay. That was my first Aquilegia, which has spread throughout here, which I'm quite happy with because I'd like this area to fill out with that, so that's quite nice. There's more of the snapdragons. This, for some reason I ended up just putting yellow ones there, which is fine. The lobelia, the flowers are coming up nicely. The leaves sort of died back a bit, so it's a bit hit and miss there. Alyssum, some dried off, or dried out Nigella. So, usually plenty of seeds in those, but they tend to self-seed quite easily. Another one of those, whatever they were. There's another one, cyclamen. Rose. And that one, it's called Platycodon. It just reminded me of platypus for obvious reasons. So look at there, so that's right. Yeah, I think we'll go around on the back now. So this is now effectively the butternut pumpkin, or squash, depending on where you're from, patch now, to the extent that they've even grown up my grapevine and are producing quite a few. So at some point there'll be a pretty big harvest of those. Let's work our way through. As you can see, more there, over there. See more coming along. And get to here, we've got the kale and the. I'll just pause it. That's just a bit noisy. The eggplant or aubergine here. And one of the things I didn't realise is that where they attach to the actual plant, or the fruit I should say, they're really spiky. So I got jabbed a couple of times by those, quite nasty. That actually you can just see there, there's a broccoli. So it's obviously leaving to flower, that's fine. Now, as much as the tomatoes were not looked after the best, because they're all indeterminate, so they're trying to grow everywhere, they did actually produce some quite decent fruit. This was one that my son brought back from science class at school, so that's done all right. And over here, I believe this one is the mortgage lifter, which is doing quite well for itself there. I added a whole bunch of compost to the veggie patch here because basically the soil gets quite dry, and so I figured it might just be a case of it needs to have more compost added to try and give it a bit more I don't know, texture material to try and stop it. Kind of a mulch, basically, that's what I'm trying to think of, to let it retain some more of its moisture and such. So we'll see if that helps there. Now I've got a couple of capsicum / bell peppers here, so I'll see if that one gets to mature before the weather turns particularly cold. We actually have had a few nights now dipping under the 10-degree mark, so it's getting cooler. So there's another broccoli plant left to flower. I don't know if you can quite see that little native bee, I think. That's there. More broccoli. This one's actually a cabbage that I've left in for at least a year, I think now. This will probably come up when I change this whole garden bed here. You can see the red grapevine has come all the way through and is climbing up the tree. So the idea is basically to move these two fruit trees. So there's the peach tree and there's the apricot. I think there's also a nectarine and another nectarine there. So I'll try and move those to the front yard. Hopefully they survive. And what I'll probably do is make this a slightly raised bed just to bring it basically up to the same level as the concrete there, and then that can go across. And I'll also put in a couple of pillars to go right up and form basically a trellis for the grapevine to go up. and also my kiwi fruit and passion fruit if that survives, and then ideally maybe even have it sort of go across here and have a couple more pillars attached to here, so it forms a bit of a walk through archway idea, but we shall see. The rhubarb is doing okay. Obviously I'll probably have to leave that for another year, but that might have to move as well when I do this rejigging of the area, as will the gooseberry. We'll see how we go. This next ring tree I'll probably move as well. It's doing quite nicely, but I don't think it's produced fruit. And I tend to have the leaf curl around here, and as I've said before, I always forget to treat the trees before it's too late, and also they tend to blossom before I'm ready for them. Another part of the plan is to move the compost bays. It's basically finished. This one's sort of just getting topped up across, so they're basically in line or against that concrete, and probably try and push them back a bit, which means I may take out these trees as well. This one, as much as it's nice and big, it is also big and tends to sway quite a bit in the wind, and we've got a bunch of cables that come to the house, so I might have to try and figure out how to cut that one down. And if I do, the ideal would be to replace it with fruit-bearing trees or something, or at least something with a nice bit of flower coverage would be nice as well. The new position for the strawberry bed is going okay. The main strawberry plant has survived, and it turns out the two runners did actually survive. This one was doing quite well. This one I thought wasn't, but it seems to have come up. And because this is topped up with my compost, naturally there are volunteer potatoes all through it, and what looks like some tomatoes as well. I don't mind, they can grow there for the moment, and then I'll probably pull them out at some point, or harvest them if they get to that point. The store-bought Granny Smith is doing okay, certainly getting a nice bit of size to it. Has not yet borne fruit all the way to an edible stage. It did grow some this year, but then they kind of dropped off at some point. My raspberry, Chilcotin, I think is what it is. So I'll have to cut that back at some point for it to produce nicely next year. I took out the Nigella because it was just swamped with them. That's a seaside daisy. I can't remember what that one is, but it could also be seaside daisy actually. Yeah, I think it is. It just doesn't have the flower on it. So I've got those there. Apparently they spread and create a nice ground cover, so they can fill out that area nicely. Got the dianthus still growing here. I just topped up the water a little bit, but obviously it needs some more. But the other thing you can see here is a flower growing from that one there, which is nice. And this one actually produced flowers as well, but obviously it's died back a bit now. And the lily's done exceptionally well. It almost grew flowers, but I think they might have been actually shaded out by its own leaves too much, and so they didn't quite bloom. But that was a good start, and there's a nice lot of shade and hiding spots there for the fish, so that's good. Around here we've got another hollyhock, my biggest mound of alyssum, and then in the corner there is a foxglove. I'd love to get some wood chip to put down around here, and I am on mulch.net and I think Chip Drop, neither of which have ever had anything for me to take delivery of, even though they do both say they support Australia. They don't seem to be overly well supported, at least by the local group, so I might just have to flag down a tree surgeon or something and see if I can get some from them. We shall see. These are experimental things. I don't really expect them to propagate. It's basically, I just had to prune some of the trees back because they're too close to a cable that we just got installed for the National Broadband Network, fibre to the premises. I just didn't want them to be too close to that and sort of possibly whipping it and things like that. So I chopped off some branches. I thought, well, look, I've already taken the branches down. I might as well take some cuttings of them. And I suspect this one's probably just dried out, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. Over here, my most successful kiwi fruit. I'm hoping that goes very well. None of my other little ones. I did actually have some other seedlings that had started, but they all died off. So I have started again. these ones were started with the paper towel in a Ziploc bag with a bit of moisture trick. Took a few weeks, but then they started to show the little signs of rooting, I guess, or shooting, I guess. And so I've planted some of those out, not all of them. I had 2 bags. One of them definitely had some, so I put the ones in here that I could see the shoot. Some of them are still trying to break open, I guess. So this is the first test batch. I also have, as I can, probably can't read, the right-hand side is my homemade compost, and the left side is potting mix from a store. So I'll see if there's any difference there. Probably not much. I mean, they're only seeds at this point, but we'll see what happens. This is another eggplant, aubergine. It just not got nearly enough time to grow to fruition there, but that's fine. I may overwinter it. I don't know. I'll see. And then over here we have the alpine strawberry, which is dying back a little bit there, but that's fine. In here it's kind of more just for a bit of greenery, a bit of colour and things. Another seaside daisy, just because I like to have some of my plants in here as well. The alyssum in here is obviously not as bright with flowers, but it's still growing okay. The avocado, which has these interesting spots on it here. They look like they're external, so I don't know whether those are eggs or something like that. Not super fast, it's kind of just a bit of a fun growing that one there because I can. This is a self-sown, I should say, tomato, I suspect, so I figured it can go in the ground and it can grow from there. We'll see what happens. Another tomato in with what I believe is passion fruit. The capsicum / bell pepper there is putting on some more fruit. I had one of the fruit from it, which is a decent size, but the walls of it were very thin. I'm of 2 minds as to whether that's because I overwintered it or because I just didn't water it too much, because I'm a bit bad with my watering. The spare viburnum, pineapple planted in ground, broccoli, foxglove, which you can see is suffering from my not watering very well, but then pineapple in a pot, which I think is going quite nicely. As to whether it'll ever fruit, I don't know, but I mean that's literally from a supermarket pineapple, cut the top off, put it in soil. It's been transplanted at least once, I think. But yeah, that's doing quite nicely. Happy with that. Hollyhock that I cut back just because there's no point in it growing much under the bench is growing back more, which is fine because I'm going to use that for mulch, if nothing else. It's, a bit of regenerative compost seems to be an okay idea. And now, if we ignore the mess and the weeds and things on the way, we'll go to the final part, which is the backyard garden edging. I'll start over this way. So I have the 2 apple trees planted at the same time, both roughly the same size when they started. Slight difference in size. I assume it's just whatever the nutrient level in here where they are particularly planted are, but yeah, quite happy with the way those are going. Another seaside daisy, because again the idea is to hopefully sort of fill out this area here. Another one of the mystery ones that I can't remember. I think it's one that has a flower spike. No, can't think what it is. Dianthus, maybe? I can't remember. Anyway, I actually cut back some of the Cafe au lait dahlia a bit. Orange tree still going well. Another seaside daisy. Another one of those ones that were discounted. Now I've chopped the sunflower there back because it was basically done. As you can see, it had dried out, all the colour had faded. Oh, this dahlia is obviously getting to the end of its time this season. That's okay. It can die back as it likes. Now, let's get a bit of a look at this one because that was quite nice. Now, I believe that one's called, was it African Dawn or African Sunset? That's one of the dahlias that I purchased as a tuber. One of the 2 as a tuber, and that's the one that survived, obviously. Again, can't remember what this one's called. It'll be funny if it's Forget-Me-Not, which it may be, but I don't remember. Another one of the discounted ones, and another, yes, I've already forgotten. Cyclodon? I can't remember. Cyclamen. One of those. So that is the state of the garden. Ooh, one last thing. Again, ignore the weeds and things. But if you can see down there, My butternut pumpkin is actually growing quite nicely there, so that'll be a good ground cover to get rid of, well, at least slow some of the weeds, hopefully. But anyway, that is the garden, 22nd of June, not June, not yet, 22nd of March 2024, as we start to get into the cooler weather of autumn. Thanks for watching and happy gardening.